For a while, I've been thinking of ways people can start to generate passive income without having a specific skill set or a ton of cash. And I'll admit, it's no easy feat. But I thought I could leverage the power of Fiverr to make it a little bit more attainable. So if you've seen my other videos on passive income, you may know that I make music and it currently generates income in two ways, from licensing and from streaming. And this currently accounts for over $2,000 a month in passive income for me, and the more tracks I have uploaded, the more money I generate. But if you're not much of a musician or a producer, is there any way you may be able to still partake in some of this passive income? Well, I thought I'd head to Fiverr and find someone who would create tracks for me that I would have 100% of the rights to, so I could do with it as I please. I can then upload it to a site like Artlist for music licensing, and I can upload it to streaming services as well. A lot of people that offer songwriting gigs may want to split royalties, which is totally fair, but for my purposes, I want to own everything 100% and not have to worry about splitting any money after the fact. Just one upfront payment and that's it. After a little bit of searching, I ended up finding a seller who'd create 10 lo-fi hip-hop tracks for about $30. I figured it's a pretty low-risk way to try this out. I also want to make sure it'd be original compositions and not implementing samples by anyone else. Once he confirmed that it would be all original music, I went ahead and placed the order. So I'll check back once the order is complete and I have the songs in my hands. Or like in my downloads folder. So it's 2 days later and the seller delivered all 10 songs. And I have to be honest, the tracks are fine. Let's take a listen. Being familiar with the music that's out there on sites like Artlist and on streaming like Spotify, these songs just lack a little zhuzh. But really, for $30, I can't really expect high caliber music. Still, the mix is a little off, the drums are a little loud, and in general, I just don't think these tracks are where I need them to be to make sure they can generate some revenue. So I might head back to Fiverr and try some more expensive gigs to see if I can get something a little bit more polished. But until then, I figured I would try and see if I can get one track out of these 10 that I can feel good about releasing with a set of other songs I have completed but have yet to put out there. So now obviously this next part is going to utilize some music production chops and creativity, so my initial premise for this video has definitely failed, but I will try and salvage what I can by creating one complete track in just one day. So I'm gonna grab my MIDI controller and get to work in Ableton Live to see what I can create. Okay, so I just listened through all 10 tracks. I found one I'm gonna work with. I'm gonna start by creating chopped up samples based off that full track. So there's several ways to start sampling from a track. I'm gonna use a plugin called Arcade, and this lets you create your own kit of sorts based off of a sample. One other thing is I want to sample without the drums and just create my own drums. So I'm just going to sample the bare keys and then add my own beat. And now I'm just going to fiddle around and see if I can come up with something that sounds good. For a lot of my samples, I use a website called Splice. It's really good for finding any sort of sample that you could want. So I have a ton of drum samples. I'm gonna start pulling some in, seeing what sounds good, and then create a beat out of it. Let's try this. I like to put the kick, I just start with the kick usually on the 1 and the 3, which is pretty standard for a beat. I might add a kick on the and of 3 just to emphasize that note right there. Okay. Okay, and then let's find this a snare, maybe something, a crunchy clap or something like that. Let's try snap. Maybe this. And once again, I usually just start putting the snare on the 2 and the 4 unless I have something else in mind. Pretty standard beat, and then I can figure it out from there. Alright, I think I need not a snare, but like a clap or something. And then maybe a hat or something, some sort of hi-hat. I'm gonna start by looping this section. So I like to start tracks by starting with the chorus first, and then I can figure out where to go from there. So now that I have this chopped up, I'm gonna try maybe adding a little distortion and also maybe a filter, a low pass filter, which gets rid of all the high frequencies, and so it sounds muffled. And then when the drums and everything else comes in, that filter will release, and it'll be the full spectrum of frequencies. It's okay. It's not great. I think now I'm gonna add a pad, some atmosphere, some texture, and then maybe a bass line. Okay, so now I'm gonna add some acoustic guitar. I'm gonna use a Contact plugin called Session Guitarist Strummed Acoustic 2. Pretty easy to add in some rhythm and a little bit of that nice acoustic texture. Okay, so I finished out the chorus for the most part. I have some nice pedal steel. I have this counter melody with a little arpeggiating synth. And in general, it just sounds really nice and warm, which is exactly what I wanted for this. And now I'm gonna move on to part B, which will be, I'm gonna take this main lo-fi sample that I got from Fiverr, and I'm just gonna come up with a second part for like the verses of sorts. All right, I got the bridge done. Now I'm gonna finish with the double chorus. Usually on the second time around with the chorus, I like to add some extra pads, a little bit more instrumentation, just so it feels even more full and more like the final resolute chorus. So I'm gonna add a few more sweeteners here and there, but we're about done with this track. Okay, so in just one day, I now have a completely different track. It's definitely more of a lighter electronic track as opposed to the lo-fi hip-hop style that I ordered off of Fiverr, but I think this will work well with the other tracks I want to release alongside it. And to be honest, this definitely isn't my favorite track. It still feels like it's lacking a little something, but I think it can still be a decent background track for licensing. If you want to listen to the full track, I will put the link for the SoundCloud in the description below. I'll give an update once I get some data on streams and downloads after I release this. If you enjoyed seeing my music production process, please let me know in the comments, because maybe I'll start to sprinkle in some occasional music production video alongside the other topics that I cover with this channel. Do me a favor if you would and hit the thumbs up button on this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.